Everyone, alright, so you guys should have watched my previous video on the basic idea behind top-down programming. And so, here I'm going to be using an example for trying to illustrate that a little. So if we look here, we're going to be doing assignment 4, which was about matrices, where you had to create two matrices. You had to check if they were compatible, and if they were compatible, you had to add those two matrices together, get the average of that resulting matrix, and then have to get the smallest the index of the smallest value in the summed matrix, right? So these were what you had to do step by step, okay? So in top-down programming, I told you what you should do is you should take a big problem, which in this case is just the assignment, break it down into a step-by-step procedure. So here's the step-by-step procedure. Now let's actually implement that in code, okay? So then here, first we need to do is create matrices, right? Let's do that. Double, I don't know, matrix 1 equals. Alright, so, double, this is a matrix, which I'll name matrix 1, and I'm going to do is, I'm going to have a method that I'm going to make later called create matrix, okay? And you notice here how this method has not been created yet. And yeah, I know I haven't created it, but I'm going to later on, and that's the key. So let's do that again here. So do matrix 2 equals create matrix. Or what the create matrix method does is it creates two matrices, okay? Well, it creates one matrix, and that one matrix will be set to matrix 1, and here again it'll create a matrix and set that equal to matrix 2, okay? So that solves the create matrices step, right? So this one's done. So now let's go on to the next step. What's the next step? Check if they're compatible. You have to check if these guys are compatible. So how about we do this? Boolean, which is true or false. Boolean compatibility equals check compatibility. Matrix 1, matrix 2, right? You need to check the compatibility of those. And I'm going to have it so that if compatibility here, if compatibility, the Boolean, right, equals true, then you know they're compatible, and you could do whatever you need to in here, right? Else, you know they're not compatible. So what you just do, I'll just system.out.println matrices are not compatible. Okay. So once again, I don't have the method yet, but I know what I want it to do, and I'll do it eventually. I'll make the method eventually. So this gets rid of the check compatibility part, right? Now next is sum matrices. So let's just sum them. Well, let's create a summed matrix method. So then let's do double summed matrix equals, let's see, sum matrices. No, sum of matrices. Matrix 1, matrix 2. Once again, sum of matrices method does not exist yet, but I'm going to make it, and I know what I want it to do. I know I want it to add two matrices together. Okay? And then that gets rid of this step. Then what I could do is I could do double average of matrix equals, once again, average of matrix. I'll create a method that doesn't exist yet but will exist, and I'm going to get the average of all the elements in summed matrix. And as you can see, we could do that for every single step. So, and after you create the whole, get every single step, then what you could do afterwards is actually make each method. Alright, so let's make the method for, just as an example of how to use top-down, beyond this point, is let's make a matrix, let's make the method for create matrix, okay? So for the methods for create matrix require you to, well, first define the method, right? public public static. The return type has to has to be a double. Matrix. Create matrix, right? All right. So we have our method. So now let's take this method here, right? You have to create the matrix. And let's say I'm not quite familiar with 2D arrays, or I have some ideas about them, but not completely sure. So let's break down this step, just how we broke down the entire assignment into these steps. Let's break down this one step into sub-steps. They're like, smaller steps of this main step, okay? So for to create the matrix, first you need to get the row and column numbers. Okay, so let's write that here. Get row and column numbers. And you can do the same down here. After you get the rows and column numbers, you actually have to make matrix using row and column numbers, right? So let's do that here. What's it called? Make 2D array, or I guess in this case we'll just call it a matrix. All right. So those are the two steps I need to do for the create matrix method. So let's go do that real quick. Let's get the rows and columns. To do that, let's do int row equals get rows. And once again, I did not make this method yet, but I'm about to make it, and I know what I want it to do. I know I want it to prompt the user to type in some number for the rows as the row number, right? So that's this. And then let's do the same here. Int columns. I guess I'll just name this rows. Columns equals get columns. Same idea. Method doesn't exist yet, but it's going to exist in like another minute. So public static. Now it should be, the return type is int, right? Get rows. Now what I want this to do is prompt user to input row number. Now you see this, at this point, this basic step is super easy. What do we do? Scanner x equals new scanner system.in, right? And then you could just do what's it called? System.out.println. Type in the number of rows you want in your matrix, and then you could just do what's it called? Int to return. The return value will equal x.next int, and that's just return to return, right? So this will prompt the user to type in the amount of rows you want, and then it'll set that as an integer, and then send that back to here, and that becomes the rows. Now we can do the exact same thing with columns. But instead of row number, it'll be column number. And let's name this, what is it? Columns, and then type in the number of columns you want in your matrix. Now we have the rows, row number, and column number. Now let's actually make the matrix, and we could. So let's see, double. This will be the matrix to return. Equals. Normally you would do something like new, double, and then you do rows, columns, right? But instead, what I want to do is I want to actually fill out. This only creates the matrix. I want to make the matrix, fill it, and fill it out. And fill it out. So what we'll do is we created this matrix, right? And what we'll do is we'll have a method. What we'll do is we'll make another method where it'll be to return equals. Let's do this. Fill matrix. Okay. And then it'll be rows, columns. So this method doesn't exist yet, but I want it to fill up the matrix to return, okay? And then returned is to return. So make matrix. I guess we don't need this. And then this will fill out matrix. And now let's make the fill matrix method real quick. Public static. Let's see, I need to return a matrix. Double. Fill matrix. Int rows and columns. Now I don't have, I think the error is because I don't have a return type yet. Okay, so let's actually finish this real quick. So to finish this real quick, let's take a look at something. Well, let's take a look back at how 2D arrays work. Now we've been doing this whole thing of, taking a bigger, the 2D array, taking a bigger step or bigger problem and breaking it down to a bunch of smaller problems, right? Which is what we did here, we had this big assignment that we did and we broke it down into steps. And then we took the first step and broke that down into further steps that are easy to do, okay? So, so we created the matrices, we made the create matrix method, and we broke down the create matrix method into, well, you get the number of rows and the number of columns. Then what you do is you actually we made the matrix here, and now this is going to fill out the matrix. And now we're trying to fill the matrix. And then once you fill the matrix, you've made your matrix, right? And then you could send that back to up here. So that's how you went through it step by step. Now, if we take this fill matrix step, we could break this down too. Hey, so let's break down this, what's it called? We have this step, right? Fill matrix. Let's break down this step even more. So to break down the fill matrix, let's break this down into first. Let's take a quick look at matrices. We can think of a matrix as an array of arrays within them, right? So, 2D arrays are a little confusing at times. So to make it simple, what I want to do is I want to fill out, let's do it like this. I want to fill out one row at a time, okay? And then once I fill out one row at a time, after I fill out each row, well, I've got the whole 2D array, correct? That's what I plan on doing here. And if you watch my 2D array video earlier, this should make sense. Well, you should get a general idea of how to do it at least, okay? So then let's do this. This will be double to return equals new double. And this will be rows, columns. And at the very end, I'd return to return. So now in here, I need to somehow fill up this array and send it back here, which will then send it equal to this, okay? So let's fill it up. To fill it up, what we could do is we could do for int, let's see, rows. Well, rather than that, let's do, to make it less confusing, let's do, this number is going to be the row number for this 2D array, okay? So the row number would be, what would be good? I guess I'll just do it I for now, equals 0, I is less than, what's it called, to return dot length, I plus plus. And I know this should be less than. Alright, so if you remember here, what I said is for to fill the matrix first, if you remember what I said, I want to fill out each row, okay? And then once I fill out each row, I'll have the full matrix. So what this will do is this will fill out each row, okay? Now in here, what I could do is I could do to return I, which is the row, right? Row of like for example, to return 0 will be the first row in to return, and then to return 1 would be the second row in to return. Remember, look back on 2D arrays if you're getting confused here. Now we could just have this equal to, well, hey, let's have an array called, let's have another method, called fill, single row. Okay, and what this method will do is it'll prompt the user to fill out a single row of the array. All right, so now we don't have this method yet, so let's do that. So public static double fill single row. Well, I guess we need the row's length, don't we? So then we should do to return I dot length. And then this should just be int length of row. Okay? So now let's create that single row. So then it'll be double single row equals new double length of row. And now let's fill this guy out. So let's have the user fill it out. So scanner y. I mean this step, fill out a single row, a single array. A one-dimensional array should be really easy. You guys should know that, and since we broke it down to this step now, we might as well do it. Equals new scanner dot in. Yeah. Right. So let's do that. What's it called? System.out.println. Enter values for first row. Well, not first row, for this row of the matrix. Now then, and then let's actually fill it out. For int I equals 0, I is less than single row dot length, I plus plus. Oh, I misspelled it. Alright. So now then, now let's just fill this guy out, and it would just literally be single row I equals y dot next int. Now let's return single row, because that's our fully calculated single row. And then bam, would you look at that. Now if we look here, let's go back to here. We fill out the we just finished the single row, right? So filled out the single row, and and now we use that single row in the fill matrix where we fill out each row. We filled out all rows here. So now you fill the matrix row by row, right? That's what happened here. And now that you filled the matrix row by row, now what you could do is you could now send that matrix all back up through the steps, and you created your matrix, and all that is in here. And you broke it down to the point where you fill out one row, one array, a one-dimensional array, which is really easy, right? So now then, we could do that for everything else in here. So I'll pause the video and do that really quick. All right, so now that I've made each of those methods now, so there's no more errors. All the methods exist. So now if we look at the main method here, you see how easy to read it is. Oh, how easy to read it is? Yeah, because if you look here, you created the two matrices, matrix 1, matrix 2, which was step 1. Then we checked compatibility right here, step 2. Then, since it's compatible, right, now we actually sum the matrices. That becomes sum matrix here. Then we get the average, right? And that'll get the average. And then once you get the average of it, you can, well, in this case, print it out. I skipped this for now because it's a little more complicated, but you get the picture. And if they weren't compatible, I'll just be here, print out, down here, just print out, hey, well, too bad, they're not compatible. So that's the basic overview of how to do top-down. And here is a version of it that I made that is a little different, but it does the same thing. Just ignore this for now, but it's pretty much a very similar implementation, and the only thing is actually defined the, what's it called, the matrices, okay? And if we run it, you can see this was a sum matrix, and the average is 14, and then you could get the the minimum value as well. The average is 14. We didn't do the min value thing in there, but this does what this does. It's the same thing. Now then, this made the main method super easy to see. And if you ever have any errors, you'll know that you might have made the error here when you created the matrix, or while you were checking the compatibility. If you have any compiling errors or other issues, you can actually track down where you had the error. You can maybe have the error here, or here, or here. For example, let's, instead of doing double, let's make this just introduce some error somewhere. Oh, I guess that doesn't do it there. Here, let's do int instead here. So you see, we have an error with the create matrix method. But hey, I mean, we know with this error that it's while we're creating the matrix, for some reason there's an error. Then we could just fix it up, right? Now imagine that exact same thing where there's some error in there with this guy. Now this guy does the exact same stuff that this does as well. But look at this main method. It is very different. Now then, if you've had some error in here, could you tell me whether it was while you were creating the matrix? Well, I mean, yeah, eventually you could tell me that it was when you were creating the matrix. You'd have to track it down and double check and make sure and so on and so forth. But this is extremely hard to debug. It's extremely hard to read, and sometimes if you might forget what you were doing, and then when you go back, well, all of a sudden you can't do anything about it. You're gonna have to, re-figure out what you did and then work from there. In comparison to that, it's almost like just straight up reading it, right? You just you created matrix 1, matrix 2, check compatibility, sum them, and average them, and then print out the average of that sum matrix, right? That is top-down programming. And this same idea, where you break down the big problem, the assignment, into a bunch of steps, and then you can break down those steps into smaller steps until the smaller steps are super easy to solve. Once you solve the super easy small steps, you could work your way up, and eventually you'll solve the bigger steps. That's top-down programming, and that will work for a lot of the assignments that you'll be tackling, and it will make your life so much easier if you happen to master it. Remember, this is a style of writing programs, not actually, something that's required per se, but it'll make your life a lot easier. So in the next video, I'm going to give you some hints as to how you could use this idea with your assignment that's due very soon, the assignment involving the student class, making a student class, and then using that class to, print out a roster, right? Yeah. So the next video, I'll give you some hints on that, with this top-down method in mind. Okay?